There's nothing quite like the experience of playing games together in the same room, especially something as good as Snow Brothers. You both know you're about to take on one of the most addictive and fun cooperative games on the NES. I would go as far to say that this is my favorite two-player simultaneous NES game. However, I want to make it clear up front that I'm not against online multiplayer by any means. I live pretty far from several of my friends, and so yes, online multiplayer and the ability to chat over the internet is phenomenal. There just is something so magical about sitting down to play games together, though. Sure, I appreciate the internet, but we can't be forced into a digital-only hangout space. We need games for people to play together in the same room. Now, the first argument against Snow Bros and its viability as a couch co-op game is the cost. Yeah, this one is ridiculously pricey, and no, I did not pay the retail value for it. However, we will delve into some alternatives to original hardware for this one. But yes, my copy of Snow Brothers is legit, and I featured a cleaning of it in my video where I swabbed some of my favorite NES games. I acquired it through a lucky eBay snipe. I was in the right place at the right time, and I got extremely lucky. After owning it, I would say that picking up at least a reproduction cartridge of this game would be a great idea so that you could still play it on an NES. If you have a good setup to play emulators with multiple people, then by all means go ahead and do that as well. Yes, I said that. Remember, I'm not anti-emulation. I just don't talk about it as a means of preservation because it's low-hanging fruit. You can emulate basically anything, and it's the foundation for all game preservation. The higher the historical risk, the more important emulation becomes. Therefore, there's no reason to shell out $250 or more for this game, but finding some way to play it is very much worth it. The gameplay you are seeing is from original hardware, if you couldn't tell by the low quality. And if you're wondering how I record off my NES with modern capture hardware, here's a little breakdown of how I do it at least. So I have my NES here. I'm using the front-loading one because it has the AV and the RF support. So the coaxial is run through to the old TV here, which only does coaxial, and then the AV is run to an upscaler, which goes to this HD TV, and then goes to my capture card here. So I do technically use both the coaxial and the AV at the same time. I haven't had any issues doing that. If you know if there's potential problems with that, let me know, but haven't had any issues with it. And here you can see just a little live action of me recording gameplay of some Snow Bros. The two players are my girlfriend and me. Keep in mind my girlfriend is not nearly into gaming the way I am. It's mostly my hobby. However, one game that we do both find a lot of enjoyment out of is Snow Brothers. The channel You Can Beat Video Games gives a good retrospective on how the idea of creating games for couples and generally appealing to more women in gaming was a focal point of development for Snow Bros. It just makes sense then that this game is the one that she ended up liking so much. Games made for couples is certainly a trend that continues to this day. We have things like snipper clips on the Switch, and It Takes Two on every platform ever known to man. I actually have my girlfriend here to tell you all what her favorite things are about Snow Brothers. So tell us, what's your favorite part about Snow Bros?
My favorite part about Snow Bros is the characters. Who are they? Nick and
Tom.
Nick and Tom. They're adorable. And I also like how you get to float to the next level. That's it.
Good. Like playing the game?
Yeah.
Great, thank you. Please also understand the fact that neither of us are particularly sweaty when it comes to this game. So look, excuse the lackluster gameplay. I literally died on stage 1. Yeah, that was me. I'm not going to try and cop out and blame my girlfriend for that one. For us, it's not necessarily about beating the game without using any continues and getting the best ending. Trust me, I love a good challenge with NES games. I have beaten both Ninja Gaiden and Castlevania. However, I just don't treat Snow Brothers that way. Maybe one day I'll sit down solo and really try and grind out the best ending without using any continues. However, it's just a game that we fire up occasionally, get our fill, and move on. I believe we made it to stage like 37 out of 50 this time, and we hadn't played in a while. Again, being a savant at this game is just not important to me right now. I still have fun with it, and that's what matters, even if I'm bad at it. I also didn't play this game until earlier in 2024 when I got it, so I have no childhood muscle memory with it. One time I did beat the game with one of my friends, and here's a screenshot of what is considered the bad ending. Yeah, we used continues, but just getting through the 50 stages was great. Later I went back and recorded a solo run of the game, and I was able to beat it, still while using continues. In co-op you share the continues, and you get 9 of them total, but it's a bit easier on solo since you get every life to yourself. That way you guys can at least see the footage of the final boss. So, sorry I don't have the true ending recorded, but I'm not going through all that.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
I'm an adult with a full-time job and I play games and make videos on the side for fun. I don't have time to grind out the true ending of Snow Brothers right now. So how well has this game been preserved? Well, when I started writing for this video, I figured I was going to talk about this game having extreme historical risk because it lives in the shadows of games like Bubble Bobble and doesn't get as much love. However, Snow Bros actually does have a little bit of legacy and is a little more well preserved than I thought initially. Of course, we have to differentiate between versions here. Snow Bros was an arcade game, and then it was also released on the NES, Game Boy, and then the Mega Drive in Japan. Then there was also a sequel in the arcades, but I won't talk much about that since it's beyond the scope of the video. Looks like pretty much all the physical cartridge versions of the game are pretty expensive. The Game Boy version is the lowest cost, but it is far from cheap. The NES version is expensive, and the Mega Drive version looks to be even more insane. Therefore, preservation of the physical cartridges is difficult for Snow Bros, and I take the utmost responsibility in keeping mine in decent shape and working for as long as I can. The biggest nod in modern times that Snow Bros has gotten is its re-release on the Switch, Snow Bros Nick and Tom Special. I was really excited to learn that this game existed. The Switch has to be one of the most versatile systems ever made. Between Nintendo Switch Online and the bevy of other re-releases that appear on the console, you can do so much with a Switch. There's a reason why mine sits in its own spot on my desk, and outside of direct capture from a PC, the Switch is my next most important system for game footage. Other than the preservation of the game itself, I want to discuss the idea of saving couch co-op. Yeah, it might be a bit avant-garde to discuss the preservation of playing games in the same room, but hey, the industry has obviously shifted heavily in favor of online play in the past 2 decades. However, couch co-op has been kept relatively alive, particularly due to the indie gaming scene. I remember around 2010 when I was at the peak of my gaming interest in my early teenage years, there was always discussion about how couch co-op was dying out in favor of online play. It seemed like couch co-op would eventually go extinct, and I think some people were sounding the warning signs regarding local multiplayer's longevity. However, as the indie gaming scene got more and more popular, I think couch co-op was at least somewhat saved. There's plenty of games out there on Steam that I aspire to play with my girlfriend or other friends. And sure, things like Fortnite and Call of Duty are still extremely dominant in the gaming world. I'm not denying the fact that online multiplayer is a huge juggernaut, but I think local multiplayer was preserved somewhat well over time. Snow Bros getting a Switch release is another example of local multiplayer having at least some focus in the industry today. The threat of local multiplayer just going away completely doesn't seem to be as prevalent anymore, and thank goodness for that. It's hard to describe other than just saying the word magical, but there really is something special about playing games together in the same room. I'm glad that at least some of the industry still acknowledges the importance of playing games this way, and hopefully we will continue to see this kind of support in the coming decades. Other than the remaster, there's also actually a brand new Snow Bros game called Snow Bros Wonderland. It came out right around the time that this video is being posted, and I couldn't believe it when I read that on Wikipedia. I did a double take when I saw the date of the game's release. However, I won't delve too much into this one because it looks to be fairly original based on the trailers, and it seems to mostly just be Snow Bros by name. I have not played it yet, but it looks a bit more like a spiritual successor than something I would consider a preservation effort for this channel. Don't get me wrong, I'm still happy that there was a new Snow Bros game in 2024, that's awesome. It just doesn't really fit the scope of the video. If you remember from my Mega Man 3 review, I was annoyed that the classic Mega Man games had been taken off mobile devices. Well, good news for Snow Bros, you can still get this game on mobile, and look at that, there's Bubble Bobble right there as well. Looks like it's the arcade version and not the NES version, but that is completely fine. Unfortunately though, I need to note that the mobile version of Snow Bros is plagued by an onslaught of ads and microtransactions. They do try and get you to buy gems to be able to power yourself up or even get more continues. It's pretty unfortunate because otherwise the game's pretty fun to play, but it's just ruined by modern mobile gaming crap. Overall, I would still say Snow Bros has moderate historical risk since it's not nearly as popular or well preserved as something like Mega Man. I'm glad I don't have to say the risk is extreme or anything like that, and most of the risk comes in preserving the physical cartridges themselves since they are fairly rare and very pricey. This game goes from high down to moderate due to its availability on platforms like mobile devices and the Switch. And yes, emulation is always a viable option as well. One thing that certainly could be done is putting the NES version on Nintendo Switch Online. It would be cool to have the remastered version and then you could swap over to the NES version and compare the two. Then you could go a step further and even put the Game Boy version on Nintendo Switch Online. And then finally you could go really deep and put the Mega Drive version on there. I'm pretty sure that was a Japan-only release, so bringing it to the Sega Genesis NSO library would be incredible. For now, we have what we have, but hopefully more preservation of Snow Bros will be done in the future. By the way, the score does literally nothing in this game to my knowledge. You get 1-ups by collecting the letters for the word snow through the bonus stage or the slot machine after a boss. The score doing nothing is a bit odd and takes away some of the motivation to grab all the cakes and candies on the end of the stage. Maybe the biggest motivation is that once you get them all, you can move on to the next one. The stages are broken up nicely with a boss every 10th level. They help to keep the game from getting stale, and then you get a shot at the extra life slot machine after each boss. You get a catchy theme on the slot. And the bosses also have their own music, with the final boss also having its own theme. There's only a few themes in the game, but they are all good. My favorite is probably the one that starts on stage 11 and plays throughout the middle of the game. The music that plays in the final 10 stages certainly signals that you are getting towards the end of the game. My only issue is that the introductory part plays for a while too long, but that's a very, very minor nitpick. Otherwise, it's a solid get ready for the end type of theme. I always talk about the importance of telling the player through audio cues that they're nearing the end of the game, and Snow Brothers does a great job at that. Otherwise, the stage themes are all pretty upbeat and capture the aura that this is a happy game for happy couples. Part of what keeps Snow Brothers worth playing today is its in-game artwork. Late release NES games almost always have a nice color palette, especially ones from a company like Capcom. If you remember, I talked up the in-game artwork for Darkwing Duck when I did that video. Snow Brothers also has a very nice color palette, and it certainly captures the winter theme of the game. There's a good variety as well as you progress through the stages. They don't get too crazy with it, but there's just enough to not make your eyes tired. Now, I am very fortunate to own the physical cartridge for this one, but hell no, I do not have the boxer manual. So, time to rely once again on the excellent preservation efforts done by those who have scanned in these boxes and manuals. American box art here, the European box art, and the Japanese one. You can see pretty great. Japanese one looks really cool. Back of the box, pretty standard stuff, just a little description, some screenshots. Snowing the enemy is a real ball. Gotta love the pun. Heading on over to the manual. This one's pretty simple. Sometimes the later NES games just said, I think you guys get it by now, and they made pretty simple manuals. This is definitely one of them, so it's got some good puns up in here and a little bit of explanation just of how things work. Really do like the drawings here of the enemies. That's pretty cool. We do see the treats that are left behind on the stage as well. Hot sauce, so I guess they call it sauce. I always call it potions, but that's your power-ups. And just some explanations of the boss and a little bit of tips and tricks. Pretty standard stuff for an NES manual. Before we go, let's look at the Switch Remaster's case and manual. Wait, it comes with a manual? Yes, those two tabs inside every Switch case actually get used for this game. How amazing is that? In my Katamari Damacy review, I was annoyed that they didn't give a recreation of the manual from the PS2 version to the Switch. I mentioned how if you're going to remaster a game that originally came with a manual, then you should include an updated manual with your remaster. Snow Bros Special did exactly that. I also have the sticker sheets that came with it. Pretty cool, I guess. However, there's one thing that drives me nuts about this physical release. What's that? Bonus content? Manual? The manual's now bonus content? Remember when you just got one? Remember when it was insignificant to be this excited that a game now comes with a stinking manual? I can't be that upset about it because I'm just so thrilled that there is one in the first place. However, I do find it a bit silly to advertise it as bonus content. Overall, Snow Brothers on NES is an amazing co-op experience, and I'm very happy that there are some easier ways to play this one outside of original hardware. Couch co-op is a very important part of gaming, and I highly recommend picking up Snow Bros for the Switch. That way you can get the true couch co-op experience without breaking the bank. The concept of hanging out with friends in person and going on an adventure together or competing with each other is something that always needs to be prevalent in the industry in some way. If you haven't done it in a while, maybe this holiday season you'll have some time to play games in the same room with family or friends. And in case I don't see you for a bit, happy holidays, happy New Year, Merry Christmas, happy Hanukkah, happy everything. We'll see you next time.